Hi, I'm Curtis, and this is the first in a series of video blogs on leadership, episode 1. I've had the opportunity over the years to be in a variety of leadership roles in companies both large and small, and I've discovered 3 personalities that emerge in people who are in positions of leadership, people that are in charge, so to speak. It's really interesting that you can find out which one of these personalities people operate in by asking them a simple question. What do you do? When you ask them, what do you do? Sometimes you'll get an answer that leads you directly to one of these 3 personalities. I want to take a look at each one in turn, and then I want to talk a little bit about how we bring those all together. Personality number 1, the runner. Now, the runner, when you ask them, what do you do? They'll say, I run our sales organization, or they will say, I run such and such a department. Now, a runner is very much like an endurance racer. When you get ready to run in an endurance race, there is the bottom line time that you're aware of. This is the time you have to stay faster than, or they'll scoop you off the race course. There's a goal time that you're setting. This is how fast you want to run. And in business, that's profitability and forecast. What happens then for an endurance runner is they get into the race and circumstances change. It may be hotter or colder than you anticipated. A piece of your equipment may fail. Your cable for your gears on your bike may snap. Or you may start to get some really uncomfortable chafing somewhere you haven't planned. But in the course of the running, you're reacting and adapting strategy to the circumstances that come about. In terms of leadership, this personality of the runner is someone who understands that bottom line, the thing that we have to do to stay profitable. They've set a good goal in terms of forecasting, and typically runners can communicate these really well. And then the runner is reactive. The runner is adapting strategy all the time to try and stay ahead of this profitability bottom line that's chasing them and keep going after that top line goal that is their objective. This next personality is what I call the manager. Now, manager is really interesting too. Ask a manager, well, hey, what do you do? And they'll say, well, I manage our sales region on the West Coast, or I manage our customer service organization. Now, managers, let's think about managers in your real life context. When's the last time you asked to speak to the manager? It was probably either in a restaurant or a retail setting, and it was probably where something went wrong. There was a glitch in the process, or you didn't get what you expected, and you wanted to talk to the manager right now. Let's think about that. What that says is managers are generally invisible unless there's a problem. See, because managers are really good at making sure that the status quo happens up until the point where there's a problem, and then the manager steps in to solve it because they've been given the authority to solve it. But let's think about managers in the context of leadership. That means that the best a manager can do is be invisible until there's a problem, and then they can solve it. So if the first personality is the runner, and the runner is reactive and adaptive in strategy, the second personality is the manager. The manager is invisible until there's a problem. Now, this third personality that comes up with people in charge is the personality I call the leader. Ask someone what they do. Well, I lead our efforts to expand into a new market. Or I lead the department that's responsible for developing all of our new products. It's all even a different way of thinking just by using a word. But a leader, usually when they talk in that kind of a language, is someone who is focused on people. The runner is focused on adapting strategy. The manager is focused on making sure the process runs smoothly. But the leader is focused on people. The difference here is that the leader has spent some time getting to know all of their direct reports, getting to know the folks that are within their organization, and they will adapt strategy or manage process in terms of what they know about these people. So let's look at those 3 personalities again: the runner, the manager, and the leader. What I found to be true in my experience is that we run organizations, or we run machines. We manage process, or we manage expectations, but we lead people. So at the end of the day, if you want to become an excellent leader, it's got to start with the ability to lead people. And really, of the three, that's the messiest. Setting a goal and adapting strategy, pretty straightforward. You can make that up sitting in your office by yourself and then communicate it outward. Managing process, I define it and then we try and stick to it and then I solve problems. But leading people, that can be messy. The perfect leader knows how to balance these three personalities. But let's take a look at what happens when these get out of whack. Let's look at what happens when one of these three personalities becomes predominant. I once worked for a guy who was a pure runner. Now this was, in this case, a CEO. We had our senior product team, and I was the CTO. We had our senior product team all in a room creating our product roadmap for the next 2 quarters. And our CEO came in having just had what he thought was a phenomenal meeting with some coal industry folks. And he threw into our meeting, I want us to create a marketplace for the coal industry, and here's the upside, and here's what I think the strategy is, and here's what our goals are, and here's what I think we need to be profitable, work on that. This was a totally different direction than we'd been going with the product forever in the history of the company. This was something brand new. This was something we had sniffed at once or twice, but tried to steer away from because we didn't see it as the sweet spot of what we did. And now all of a sudden, this pure runner comes in, communicates a new strategy, throws it on the table, and leaves, and put us all into a tizzy for about a week. At the end of that week, he came back and said, hey, how are we coming on the next 2 quarters product roadmap? See, his thinking was, I just tossed out an idea. But because we knew him as a runner, we anticipated that what he was doing was adjusting strategy mid-race. And that runner threw a wrench into the works. Now, I've also worked for a guy who was a pure manager. And interesting in this case that this manager had both a distributed regional organization and a part of his organization that reported into him within the building. Now, what was really interesting is that regional organization, the turnover in that organization was almost zero. And the reason was, as a manager, he was invisible. He didn't micromanage. When things were working, he had nothing to interact with, nothing to complain about, nothing to point at or poke at. When there was a problem, he solved it. So if you reported to him regionally, it was perfect. He's invisible until I need him, and then he solves a problem. But if you reported to him in the building, his turnover was almost north of 80% year over year. That was because he was either invisible or creating problems that needed to be solved, and he would call these people into his office to solve the problems. In that pure management personality, he was great for those people in the field and horrible for those people in the building. But because this was the smaller percentage of his organization, nobody ever saw the effects of that turnover rate. Now, I'm fortunate now that I work for a guy that operates pretty much out of leader capacity or leader personality. And this guy is really focused on helping his team develop and grow in terms of their careers and their goals and their direction. In fact, so much so that there are people within the organization that will look at our team and make the comment that there's almost a family feel. Turnover is incredibly low. Most of the team has been there for years and years together because this guy works out of that leader personality. Remember, we run organizations, we manage processes, but we lead people. I was working in an organization that was supposed to be people-focused, and the senior leader had only 5 direct reports on staff. He said to us in a staff meeting, I can't afford to have good relationships with my staff in the event that I might have to fire them one day. Which personality do you think he was working out of? Runner, manager, or leader? You want a challenge? Look at the people that you report to and try and figure out which of those 3 personalities they operate out of most often. You want an even bigger challenge? Ask the people who report to you which of these 3 you operate out of most often. In the coming episodes, we'll talk more about each of these and how you bring them together into a synthesis that creates a great leader. I'm Curtis. Thanks for watching.